Right now in South Korea, a disturbing and bizarre situation is actually unfolding right now. We are witnessing a hilarious, cold, and utterly ridiculous contradiction. You have an army of self-identified radical feminists who spent years shouting from the rooftops about the absolute necessity of 4B, that is, zero dating, zero marriage, zero children, and zero sex with men. They built their whole online brand around hating men and rejecting marriage entirely as a form of protest against the society they claimed was built on structural inequality. They created a cultural brand that demanded total allegiance to this anti-male stance, and they were extremely vocal about it, creating intense social pressure on any woman who dared to even consider a traditional path. But the real twist that makes this even more unsettling is that as soon as the wind changes or a decent offer comes along, these same firebrands are sending out wedding invitations faster than you can say hypocrite. It is pure, unfiltered selfishness dressed up as high-minded social justice, and it is collapsing under the weight of its own blatant absurdity. The hypocrisy is not just a small mistake, it is the defining feature of the entire movement, and everyone is starting to see it for what it truly is, a performative act of tribalism.
Wait, is this really happening right now? How can they just act like their past years of constant, aggressive, anti-male rhetoric never happened? It feels like they were lying to everyone, including themselves, the entire time.
That is the exact question many people are asking, and the sheer audacity of it is leaving everyone stunned. Here is what is truly shocking. For years, these individuals were the absolute loudest voices in the room, constantly demanding that everyone else abandon heterosexual relationships as a form of protest against a social order they described as broken and inherently hostile. They pressured others, they ostracized those who did not comply with the strict 4B guidelines, and they created a rigid set of rules that everyone in their specific social group was expected to follow without exception. It was a culture of total conformity disguised as liberation, but the real background behind their audacity is that this was all just a show, a massive exercise in status signaling designed to gain social capital in an environment that felt increasingly hopeless. They were not building a movement for equality, they were building a bubble where the only way to feel safe or superior was to aggressively reject everything that the mainstream or the traditional world valued.
Are you still dating men? That is just giving up your autonomy and falling into the trap.
I know. I am trying to follow the 4B rules, but it is hard when everyone else is doing it.
You have to be stronger. If you want to be part of this movement and have our respect, you cannot be weak. You need to commit to the cause fully.
You see, this was not about any kind of genuine equality or social change. It was about status. In a society where economic pressure is insane and competition is fierce, declaring yourself a radical feminist became a shortcut to feeling superior and having a dedicated tribe. It was a coping mechanism for people who felt like they had no other way to assert control. But why would they actually demand this? The answer lies in the harsh, cutthroat realities of the Korean marriage market. It is a place where you are constantly judged by your economic value, your physical appearance, and your social status. By proactively opting out, they were not really opting out, they were just playing a different game, trying to secure their own sense of self-worth in a world that felt like it was closing in on them. They created a bubble where the only way to feel secure was to aggressively reject the very things they actually wanted, which was economic security, companionship, and a sense of belonging in a society that often felt incredibly alienating. It was a desperate attempt to gain psychological agency in a situation where they felt they had none.
So, they were essentially just using this movement as a shield to hide their own insecurity and fear of failure in the real world? That is just incredibly cynical and dishonest.
Exactly, and that is why the whole thing had to collapse the way it did. The real nature of this incomprehensible situation is that human beings cannot live a lie forever, and certainly not when that lie is based on denying their own fundamental human needs. When the cold reality of long-term economic survival and the basic desire for human connection bumped into their performative ideology, the ideology was the first thing to go. But this was only the beginning. The reason people are unanimously stunned is because of the sheer speed with which they abandoned everything they claimed to believe. The veil has finally been lifted, and what we see underneath is not a group of revolutionaries, but a group of individuals looking for the best possible deal they can get for themselves, regardless of what they said yesterday. The social context here is absolutely vital to understanding why this happened. South Korea is, in many ways, a massive sociological pressure cooker. The cost of housing is astronomically high, jobs for the youth are increasingly scarce, and the level of stress in everyday life is universal. In this kind of environment, any movement that promises a way out, even if that way out is just symbolic, is going to gain traction. The 4B movement became a way to vent immense frustration. But the problem is that they did not offer any real, tangible solutions to these deep-rooted problems. They only offered anger and tribal identity. And anger does not pay the rent, and it does not help you afford a house. So when a better, more practical option came along, even if it meant returning to the traditional model they had spent years claiming to hate, they jumped at it without any hesitation. They chose personal comfort over their public convictions. And
I guess that makes sense, but it still feels incredibly selfish and manipulative, especially considering how they treated the people who did not follow their rules. Are they even aware of how hypocritical they are being?
it is incredibly selfish, and the hypocrisy is so glaring that it has become the main topic of conversation. The critical clue we absolutely cannot miss is that these individuals were never truly looking to fix the world. They were just looking to fix their own immediate problems and secure their own futures. They were consuming the movement, not contributing to it. The chilling formula hidden beneath the surface is this: if you can gain status by hating, you will hate. If you can gain comfort by marrying, you will marry. It is all about the individual's own utility, and when that utility changes, the ideology changes to match it. It is a completely transactional approach to life that they were trying to hide behind a veil of radical activism.
I cannot believe you are actually doing this. You told us marriage is a trap, and that no one in our group should ever do it.
That was then. This is now. I found someone who is actually worth it, and who can provide the life I want.
You were the one who told us all to abandon this, and ostracize anyone who did not. Now you are doing exactly what you told us was evil.
People change, and you should try to be more open-minded instead of judging my personal life.
This is just infuriating. How can they act like nothing happened and just expect everyone to be happy for them? It is like they are totally incapable of self-reflection.
That is the ultimate hypocrisy, and it is driving everyone absolutely crazy. The reason the reaction is so strong is that people genuinely believed in this. They thought they were part of a real movement for change, but instead they were just props in someone else's personal performative play. Now the play is over, the curtain has fallen, and the props are being discarded. The real twist that makes this even more unsettling is that the damage is already done. Social trust is gone, and people are more cynical than ever before. The vacuum left by these failed ideologies is being filled by even more extreme, cynical positions, which is only going to make the divide in society wider and more dangerous.
It seems like a never-ending cycle of disappointment and anger. Does this have any hope of getting better? Or is the credibility of feminist discourse in Korea permanently ruined?
It is a cycle that is very hard to break, and the long-term impact on the feminist discourse here is going to be terrible. It will lead to more fragmentation, more anger, and significantly less credibility. When a movement is primarily associated with hypocrisy and contradictory behavior, it loses its power to change anything for the better. It just becomes another thing for people to be deeply skeptical about. The reality they have been trying to hide is this: they are just human, selfish, and desperate for the same things everyone else is: security, comfort, and status. And they were willing to do almost anything to get it, including lying to everyone around them and betraying their own stated principles. The real tragedy is not that people want marriage, it is that they turn the pursuit of it into a battlefield of performative hatred. The one blow that completely shattered people is the realization that they were played for fools. It is not just about the feminism part, it is about the betrayal of basic trust. When someone tells you they are standing for a principle, and then they abandon it the moment it becomes slightly inconvenient, or when a better offer for personal advancement appears, it makes you question everything they ever said. Now look closer at this shocking scene. It is not just about these individuals, it is about the system that rewards this kind of performative behavior. As long as the society values the outward appearance of virtue over genuine, difficult work towards real equality, this kind of thing will continue to happen. This is the real background behind their audacity. They knew that as long as they could signal the right things, they would be supported, even if their actions were the exact opposite. Fuel the truth at Dating in Korea. Support the structure. Stay safe in the lounge.